let's find something about Sydney Watson, because this is the person Baja Blast showed me, and I guess she's like a transphobe or something. So let's maybe see something about her. Let's look at her most popular videos. 1.1 million views. 1 million views. 857,000 views. I'm trying to find a good one. Why is Gillette promoting obesity? Why, when political activism backfires? I was detained and questioned by the FBI at LAX. That's funny. Got kicked out of my apartment for being conservative. Sure you did, bud. It's almost like landlords are bad. Maybe you should move a little further left and we can have a discussion about tenant rights. That'd be great. There's a video about Brie Larson pulling of the quartering. It's tough. It's tough. There's a lot of shitty videos on here. Big Pharma is exploiting children. Okay, let's watch this one. This is about apparently trans kids and how the medical industry is profiting off transgender people. I mean, in the United States, where we have a for-profit healthcare system, which is fucked up, I agree. Let's take down the for-profit healthcare system. Get on our side. That'd be great. She's a TERF. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
So, yeah. We're all gonna need therapy after this. Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to my channel. Before we launch in, yes, this video is sponsored by Surfshark, because we still love each other. Now, there's a strong likelihood that this video will ruffle some feathers, and if I'm being totally honest, I really wouldn't be doing my service as an Australian American unless
Wait, you're Australian? You have, like, no accent.
I made people upset from time to time. I think you mean all the time. It's far too early in the video for you to be here. Go away. So today I want to take a look at the idea that the medical side of the transgender movement is a money-making racket.
Everything in the United States involving medical anything, whether it be prescriptions or medical care, is a racket. Welcome to the American healthcare system. It's fucked up. This is not trans-specific in any way, shape, or form, any more or less than, like, cancer treatment is a money-making racket, or your diabetes medication is a money-making racket. It's all a racket. That's the American healthcare system.
And before we get started, I just want you all to bear in mind, this is a huge topic with a lot of moving parts, and there's just no way for me to cover them all in this video. So don't yell at me, because it hurts my tender, tender feelings.
Okay? Then maybe don't say transphobic shit. That'd be great. Why would anyone care about your feelings if you don't care about the feelings of others? Just pointing it out.
You don't have any of those. With that being said, I also want to highlight this is not directed at the people who transition and go on to lead happy, healthy lives. It's also not directed at the healthcare professionals who actually do their jobs properly. For once. This is simply a look at the
What is this throwing shade at healthcare professionals? Look, I have nothing against specific doctors and healthcare providers, people who actually work within the system. It's that the system is fucked up. It's the private hospital ownership. It's the private pharmaceutical companies that are taking advantage of the population that they're serving. They're fucked up. It has nothing to do with the specific doctors, nurses, RNs, whatever.
nefarious side of the medical complex. Spooky. So yeah, let's get this show on the road. In 1983, a man called Walt Heyer visited a leading gender specialist in San Francisco. After one appointment, the specialist told him that in order to alleviate his feelings of confusion and discomfort, Walt needed to transition to female.
Doubt? I've been through this. It takes a lot of time in order to get your therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist to, like, be like, okay, yeah, you're trans, right? They'll certainly work through those feelings with you, but they won't prescribe that to you, right? If what you're describing sounds like gender dysphoria, then they might recommend that. They might recommend transition. But again, that's after exhaustive conversations over long periods of time. This is not something that happens after one appointment.
By his second appointment, he had a prescription for cross-sex hormones.
Doubt.
8 years later, Walt transitioned.
Especially back in the day when this person, like, apparently tried to transition. I very much doubt that's the case.
Back to male, after finding that gender reassignment did very little to alleviate his original feelings. Just
okay. And that's fine.
so you're aware, this is after he had the snip. Even back in the 80s, and even before that it seems, a body of medical professionals didn't seem to address underlying traumas or unresolved issues of patients before giving them hormone therapies and surgeries.
This is implying that people are trans inherently because of some trauma that they've suffered, which is not the case. The evidence doesn't bear that out. There are people from very loving households who have suffered no major trauma events in their life who are still trans. I'm not trans because of traumatic things that have happened to me. I'm trans because I'm trans, right? There have been studies that show that transness can have to do with the brain itself and have to do with something going on there. Your genetics encode your brain to be more feminine if you were born otherwise as a male, talking in terms of sex. Like, as far as we know, it's not trauma-based.
And that trend and way of thinking seems to persist in some medical circles today. This is the point where I encourage you to strap in. It's about to get bumpy. In 2019, a professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University said that when it comes to transgender patients, their mental problems, often depression, discouragement, are the things that need treatment. They're going to be in the hands of doctors for the rest of their lives. Many of them are going to be sterilized, not able to have their own children, and many will regret this. Can you imagine having a life where you need to seek doctors all the time for everything just to live?
Yeah, it sucks. But it is what it is, right? I'm going to have hormones prescribed to me for the rest of my life. That kind of sucks. It does, but it's the reality. And those extra things can be very invalidating and help cause things like anxiety and depression in people with gender dysphoria. But it doesn't mean the answer is to just not address it in the same way that someone with, like, let's say, cancer, treatment itself might be exhausting and depressing and breed anxiety in them. Nonetheless, it's something you need to do to treat the disease. Same thing here. Gender dysphoria is something that has been studied relatively well over time, and we understand that treatment in terms of transitioning is helpful. Okay? Great.
Getting your hormones checked, getting everything checked. That is something doctors should like to spare people of. But instead of sparing patients, more and more anecdotal accounts are indicating that doctors are very quick to prescribe hormones not only to young adults, but puberty blockers to children.
Okay, first of all, totally different things. Puberty blockers for children do not stop you from ever hitting puberty. They literally put a pause button on you hitting puberty. It's basically so if you're like 11 or 12 or whatever, and you feel that you are not comfortable with the sex you were assigned at birth, or your gender rather, and you feel it doesn't conform to your sex, then you can speak to therapists and your parents and then get on puberty blockers. And what this does is it prevents you from hitting puberty until such an age that you have the mental fortitude, the mental forethought, the maturity to understand the effects of hormone therapy. And at that point, you can either, if it's something you want to do, go on the hormones and transition, or if you decide that you've changed your mind, if it's not something you actually wanted for whatever reason, they take you off the puberty blockers and you go through puberty normally. It's fine. It does nothing. It does nothing. It literally just stops you from going through puberty, which, for a trans person, can be pretty fucking traumatic, let me tell you. As someone who had to go through puberty, fucking sucks. There's a reason a lot of trans people are into body horror, right? Like, you watch the movie The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, and there's all these weird changes, and it's disturbing, and it's like, yeah, I feel that shit. I get that. Waking up every day to try and figure out what new fucked up thing your body has done to make you feel uncomfortable in your own skin. It's a thing trans people have to deal with. Puberty blockers for children, do not put them in a box and force them to transition later. It's just a pause button so they can decide when they're more mature. Secondly, in terms of getting hormones quickly, bull fucking shit. I've been through this process. I am on hormones. Unlike you, who has no idea, and you're literally just listening to anecdotes from weird right-wing people, and people who have decided to detransition, which, by the way, is their right. And that's completely fine, and I'm sorry if they went down a path that wasn't happy for them, but studies have shown that less than 0.5% of people who transition regret it or detransition. It's not a majority, even close, in the trans community. It's just not a thing that happens very often. Hormones are difficult to get on. Not only does it take a long time, it takes notes from therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists, depending on where you are. You have to talk to doctors about it. They make you sign a stack of paperwork about this thick, about all the warnings, and then, if you're lucky, you'll get on them. This is not something where you walk in the door and you go, I would like one estrogen, please. And they go, here you go. Not how it works.
There's nothing funny about the
Clear the egg. It took me so long to find out that that's not how puberty feels to everybody. Yeah, same. Porcelain giant with 100 bits. You tell him. Yeah, this lady's the fucking worst. Trying to tell, like, people, like, this is how trans people feel. Like, lady, you're not trans. Shut the fuck up. That'd be great.
Puberty blockers, for those of you who don't know, are drugs designed to postpone puberty.
Postpone being the opportune word.
In children.
Yes, in order to, if they are trans, not have them go through that. And for instance, myself, male to female trans, went through puberty. And any doctor will tell you, I've had doctors tell me this, it's easier for someone who's female to male trans to pass than someone who is male to female, specifically because when you are starting out appearing and going through female puberty, you can build muscle onto that, and the testosterone can effectively sort of like make you more masculine. But the opposite isn't true. Like, my shoulders will never unbroaden. My frame will never get smaller than it already is, because that's not how hormones work. You can't take that shit back. It's a good thing for trans kids to be able to postpone puberty until such a time that they are mature enough to make the decision as to whether or not they are going to transition, whether that's at 16 or 18 or whatever. And if they choose not to, they just stop the puberty blockers and they go through puberty. It's fine. There's nothing about it that is dangerous.
Self-explanatory. In the last year...
Self-explanatory? What do you mean self-explanatory? Yeah, they're puberty blockers. It postpones puberty. That's it. You can get it later. Devious Chillster with 25 bits. I also feel like we're a lot more hypercritical of how women look, so whenever someone doesn't look like a woman, people will point it out. Notice, true.
We've seen an explosion in the stories of people regretting their decision to transition. And to compound that are the...
This is from RT, which is the Russian government news organization. Russia, where it's like not okay to be gay or trans. You're literally citing Russian propaganda. What a galaxy brain move.
The stories of former transgender patients who claimed they were given hormones without any type of proper therapy or assessment.
And you know what's going to happen when those go to court? They're going to show the mountain of paperwork that they have you sign that explains all of the things that are going to happen because of the hormones. And they go over this with you thoroughly. I've been through this. And they're going to go, oh, this case is getting thrown out. You signed a mountain of paperwork that said you understood the risks.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capital.
Highly derp with a bit. I wish I had puberty blockers. One of my biggest issues with dysphoria is from my hips being too wide. Thanks, estrogen. That I didn't ask for, yeah. It's very ridiculous.
Funnily enough, an example of this is actually Planned Parenthood, who's become the second largest provider of hormone therapy in the United States.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood is rad as fuck. Support your local Planned Parenthood, people. Donate to Planned Parenthood. It's not only good for general health care, both of women and men, but if you want to support trans health care, Planned Parenthood, good thing to donate to. They're readily available in most places in the country, and they do prescribing for trans individuals. It's a pretty fantastic thing. So, thank you, Planned Parenthood. Rotom20 Gaming, thank you for following.
Yikes. On their website, they clearly state...
Is she just saying yikes because it's Planned Parenthood, and because you're probably anti-choice? And you're like, yikes, it's Planned Parenthood, where they provide medical care to women. Oh no, and now they're helping trans people. Is there any substantive commentary in this video, or is it just her, like, doing little quirky Zooey Deschanel shit? Like, oh yikes, I'm so quirky. That's not an argument. You making weird, obnoxious YouTube edits is not an argument. Cotton Candy 903 with 10 bits. These people also miss the fact that puberty blockers aren't just used with trans kids, they're also used to treat precocious puberty, which is a condition that causes young children to go through puberty before they're old enough. Yeah.
You don't need to participate in therapy or provide information from a mental health provider to receive hormone therapy. Here they also detail how to get hormones, and at no point in the process is there a mental health evaluation.
There usually is.
Which maybe should be part of giving people life-altering drugs.
Hey, if you're given any drug, probably life-altering in some way, right? You can also go to many places and get, like, antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds without going through therapy, right? If you're an adult person, then it's on you to be responsible, okay? And the doctors still, even if you don't go through therapy, which again, most trans people do in order to get hormones, the doctor's still gonna sit down and have a long conversation about this with you. And again, give you a mountain of paperwork about this fucking thick for you to sign almost every page of to ensure that you've read it all.
I don't know. Just a suggestion. You know, maybe what they should be giving them instead is a secure internet connection. Which is why today's video is sponsored by Surfshark. Wow, this is, without question, your worst segue to date. Do you own a computer? Do the use take for letting breathe? There on the Sydney's 8th option, and no one guarantees so the weird caption. Some children can get interestingly at some locations and with a parent.
Devious Chillster with 25 bits. Also, the only reason people like this want a psych test is so they can say, you need a test to see if you're trans, therefore it's a mental illness. I see your fucking game, you human incarnation of an ingrown toenail.
Parents' permission. Some children can get puberty blockers through Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, puberty blockers, again, are something that postpones puberty, but once you stop taking them, your puberty will start. They're innocuous at worst. There's absolutely nothing that's going to happen if you go on puberty blockers that's going to be an adverse effect. You'll just go through puberty later if you decide to, whether it's puberty caused by your own body's hormones or if you do decide to transition, which most people who end up on puberty blockers do decide to do, because what do you know? It's almost like people who are trans know they're trans from a pretty young age. Then you go through puberty just with, you know, medication.
Puberty blocker drugs, in some cases, seem fairly easy to get as well, even though
because they're basically innocuous.
They are not FDA approved for this use and have resulted in thousands and thousands of deaths
Source!
and complications. Just FYI, these drugs are used for other things too.
Yes.
Such as treating endometriosis, for example.
Medications are used for off-label purposes all the time.
The point is, it's not good. Now, because I'm a psychic, I know that some of you at this point are gonna say, but Sydney, the kids can't get the things unless they have parents' consent.
Clear the Egg with 10 bits. The only negative effects of blockers I've heard about is bone density issues if you've been on them too long, which wouldn't be a problem if they're administered responsibly. Yep.
And Patricia, You're so right. But I just want to remind you that parents can have their children taken away if they don't let their kids access transition therapies.
That'd be great. That would be awesome. I don't think that's the case in most places, but if it is somewhere, awesome.
There's nothing funny
Some
about the
parents
tools
don't-
of capitalism.
Altered Rin with 5 bits. The method of getting hormones from Planned Parenthood is called informed consent, so you have to say you're informed on the issues that may arise and want this, yep.
Really have the option to say no. So that's fun.
Yes, it is. It's great for the kids. You don't get to dictate what your kids are or who they are. They're not your property.
What's marginally worse here is that doctors have admitted they don't actually know the long-term consequences and effects of puberty blockers on a child's body.
Hey, you know what the short-term effects of trans people not getting on puberty blockers and going through puberty the wrong way? Suicide, you fucking idiot! Have you seen the trans suicide rates?
That's
My
right, capitalism
god.
propaganda.
Thank you to Malcol MG2000. Thanks for following. All medications, every single medication, and I mean every medication, has some risk. That doesn't mean you don't take it, right? Look at something like chemotherapy. Chemotherapy fucks
Comforting.
you up. It is awful. But often it'll kill the cancer quicker than it kills you. So it's something that we use to treat. This is the same on varying levels with all sorts of medications. You sort of weigh the risk-reward, and you decide whether or not you're going to take it.
There's nothing funny
Very
about the tools of
simple.
capitalism.
Acting like this is a trans-specific issue and not something that goes into deciding if you're going to take literally every other medication is so bad faith, it's ridiculous.
In 20
And it's not cute. The little edits you're doing where it's like a jump cut and you're somewhere else responding to yourself with T, not fucking cute. It does not jive with this transphobic attitude. You're not cute. You're fucking awful. So knock this shit off. Kier Thin, thank you for subscribing.
2015, the National Institutes of Health awarded the Boston Children's Hospital $5.7 million to conduct the first, just want to highlight that, the first study in the US
There's
to
nothing funny
evaluate
about
the
the tools of
long-term
capitalism.
outcomes of giving transgender youths medical treatment.
That's because youth transgender care is a relatively new thing. It's a thing that hasn't been allowed to happen in the past, right? Anecdotally, we can talk about this, especially as an adult trans person only going through this as an adult. I can tell you I would have preferred it as a kid. However, anecdotes are what you need to go on. You do need to do studies. So, this long-term study will help evaluate the efficacy of trans healthcare for youths. I think it's going to turn out that the outcomes for these individuals is going to be much better than those who wait until adulthood to make these decisions. Could be wrong, but again, the reason this is the first time is because we haven't done studies on these things before because it's a relatively new thing. You can't do a long-term study if you don't do the thing first. Jesus. Devious Chillster with 50 bits. My heart medication also makes my teeth rot out of my skull, so they told me that had happened to make sure if it was alright. Yep. Medications come with risks. Dude Spanking Dude says, I like how TERFs and all these people try to ban transitioning and stuff, yet we don't vilify and try and ban religious indoctrination and the other things that really hurt children. Almost as if this shit is based on bigotry. Yeah.
Predominantly hormone blockers and cross-sex hormones. Never mind that they've already been giving kids these drugs for literally years.
Hey, Sydney, you stupid bitch. How are you going to do a long-term study if no one does the thing first? Sydney, you stupid cunt. How are you going to study a thing that hasn't happened yet? You need to prescribe children these things and then do a study on it. Because anecdotally, we understand that trans adults who were once children are saying, hey, we should provide this to kids because I would have really, really preferred if that had happened, right? So then you do that, and then, meanwhile, you do a study on that to ensure that the anecdotes that have been given by actual trans people instead of stupid, obnoxious Australian YouTubers who quote fucking Russian propaganda. So you do the study to make sure that what people who are trans have said about transitioning and help that they could have received as a kid, you do the study while you are providing that help to kids because that's how studies work. Staring into the camera and looking distressed isn't an argument.
At this point, this kind of just sounds like human experimentation just to see what happens, because who even cares, right?
It's not experimentation, it's providing health care to people and then studying the results of it.
Kind of like when you're 10 and you're conducting your own experiments on flies by catching them and pulling their wings off.
I think that's just you. I think that's just the sociopathy talking. Maybe don't assume everyone else is a fucking psycho.
To see if they grow back. Sydney, no one does that. Yeah, well, they don't grow back. Just so you know. Now, one of the most widely prescribed puberty blockers, Lupron, however this is pronounced.
I don't know how to pronounce a thing, but I'm gonna talk about it without a medical degree as if I know what I'm talking about and then quote Russian propaganda as if it's unbiased. Genius.
Recently had to update its label to indicate that it causes seizures and serious psychiatric adverse events.
It certainly can. That doesn't mean it's predominant amongst all users. Have you looked at the pages of disclosure for literally any of the medications you've ever been on? Because the same thing can be said for certain antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, sleeping medication, all kinds of medication has these warnings.
Such as crying, irritability, impatience, anger, and aggression. Something that I personally found really disturbing here as well is how there are some hospitals and doctors who are proud of themselves.
Arcana Stamper Blackwell says, if this lady had her way, we'd still be using leeches because we couldn't possibly experiment with all this newfangled pharmaceutical science. Right? Like, how does she think stuff gets approved by the FDA? Does she not understand that human trials are a thing that happen and that's how medications get approved?
For dealing with children and
it's like she's just horrified by how medicine works.
treating children as young.
My Chud friend sent me one of her vids. Hold on, let me look at the link for that one.
I'm
Oh, Christ.
is 3. I mean, for starters, a 3-year-old doesn't know what gender or sex is. They don't really think much of anything. They're 3. If they do think anything, it's probably like whether or not dirt has a taste and how much of it they can fit in their mouth. And obviously, more importantly, treating someone from the age of 3 means, over a lifetime, that's a lot of money. And yet, drugs...
Sydney, when I was very, very young, I knew something was wrong and that I wasn't comfortable in my body. 3-year-olds, as much as you might think they're idiots, and hey, kids are idiots, I get it, are still aware if their own body makes them uncomfortable. Jesus.
that have not been properly tested or studied on healthy kids that are not FDA approved
How do you think medication gets FDA approval?
for this use, that
And again, off-label use of medications is used all the time.
cause emotional issues are now endorsed by the American Pediatric Association and codified by international guidelines.
Wow, and it seems like they certainly know a lot more about research and using medications on children than you do, so I guess you should shut the fuck up about it. That'd be great. Oh, I'm sorry, have you had some published works in journals? Have you published any research that you've done in your lab? Published any long-term studies on the efficacy of certain drugs within certain populations? Oh, no, you don't know anything about that stuff? Well, I don't either, but I'm also not claiming I know more than the American Pediatric Association. It's almost like you should shut the fuck up. That'd be great.
Well, cover me in maple syrup and call me a pancake. I don't even know what's happening.
I'm so quirky, I make funny faces at the camera. I'm I'm so relatable. I have tea. What the fuck is this personality?
I don't want to make a joke out of this, but this is probably
That's not ad hom, by the way. She's wrong because she's wrong and the things I've already addressed, not because of her shitty YouTube persona. That's an issue in its own right.
Funny about the tools of capitalism.
Antipodine squid with 100 bits. Off-label use can be awesome. 2 of my medications for fibromyalgia meds are off-label use. One is for epilepsy and the other is anti-anxiety. Yeah, and my ex I know who had like cluster headaches. She was on some kind of anti-epilepsy drug because that was supposed to help, even though that's an off-label usage. Off-label usage of drugs happens all the time. So doctors will sometimes use that, and then studies will be done, and it might become a label use at a later date. But the FDA takes a long time to do stuff, so.
how we end up with real-life X-Men. What I find interesting here is that most widely
Wait, do you think real-life X-Men would be a bad thing?
There's nothing
I mean,
funny
you
about
probably
the
do
tools
because
of
you think people who
capitalism.
are different than you are bad and don't have the right to exist, but, like, I'll take some fucking laser eyes. That'd be cool. Dudes spanking dudes. Well, we're on the subject of trans. I don't know if you want to go on I don't know if I want to go on hormones since I want to fit a fashion aesthetic that won't fit in a masculine body, but I
nothing funny
definitely
about the tools of capitalism.
want the boobs yeeted. Hey, you know, whatever makes you happy. You're valid either way. Hormones, no hormones, whatever. Whatever makes you happy. Cotton Candy 903 with 10 bits. I was put on a sleep aid that was usually used as a blood thinner in high school. I took it 2 nights in a row and I was sick from low blood pressure. My doctor told me this might happen when she prescribed it. Yeah, and that's what you do. You can do off-label prescriptions and then you see how you react, and if the negatives outweigh the positives, you stop taking it. That's how all medications work. Off-label, on-label, anything.
cited studies conclude that most children who experience gender dysphoria or question their gender will naturally come to embrace their birth sex. In addition,
Wait, what? What study is this?
most widely cited studies conclude that most children who experience gender dysphoria or question their gender will naturally come to embrace their birth sex.
What studies? You can't just say widely quoted studies and then not source. Let's see. Which one? Increase in trans patients. Boston Hospital opens kids clinic. Former patient sues clinic. Detransition story. That's not a... Lupron. Transition at 3. Children identify as their birth sex. There we go. I think that one's the one she's trying to cite. Hold on, I gotta see what the fuck this is from. The New Atlantis, a journal of technology and society. Let's look at what the New Atlantis journal. The New Atlantis is a journal founded by the social conservative advocacy group, the Ethics and Public Policy Center in 2003. The journal is not peer-reviewed and covers topics about social, ethical, political, and policy dimensions of modern society and technology. Really? A right-wing conservative think tank journal with non-peer-reviewed articles. That's your source? Hooey. Well, we don't even need to read that, because that's garbage. So.
In addition, some data
Between that and the using Russian propaganda as a source, I'm starting to think you're not the smartest person, or you're arguing in bad faith. Gee, I wonder which it is. Let me know if you see this video.
suggests that transgender people are still likely to commit suicide even after receiving hormone treatment.
Yes. Here's the thing. I've talked about this study before. Between pre-transition and post-transition, the suicide rates for trans people goes down after they transition. But after they transition, it's still higher than the general population. And do you know why that is? Because trans people get treated by shit. Like shit by society. By people like you, Sydney. You make people want to kill themselves. I think you're probably okay with that, because I think you find trans people killing themselves funny, even though it's not. But that's why it's higher than the general population. People like you.
Treatment and surgeries. So, this rolls us around.
Again, completely misrepresenting statistics. Not a good faith actor.
To my two main questions. If the majority of children eventually outgrow their gender dysphoria,
You have absolutely no evidence of that. The thing you cited was literally from a right-wing think tank with a journal that is not peer-reviewed. It is not a scientific journal. It's propaganda. And hey, I would say the exact same thing if it was a left-wing think tank with non-peer-reviewed. You cannot cite a non-peer-reviewed journal and claim it as a source and expect people to take you seriously. Fucking idiot.
why are we introducing them to hormonal and even sometimes surgical interventions that they otherwise wouldn't need?
I can't wait for these long-term studies to come out so we can actually cite them and be like, hey, look, there's really, really good outcomes for people who go on puberty blockers and transition. And they're gonna go, now we don't like statistics.
And if hormonal therapies and surgical interventions don't necessarily alleviate negative feelings,
They do. You completely misrepresented that statistic by claiming that trans suicide rates are higher afterward when they are not. Trans people before transition have a higher suicide rate than those after transition. But that after transition number, I guess because of the camera, I should probably do it this way. But that number after transition is still higher than the general population because trans people are not respected in society. People still treat trans people like shit. A lot of trans people don't pass, and people treat them like shit for that, even after they transition. What's up?
She's what happens when the school system doesn't teach critical thinking skills. You need to understand how to find actual sources of things. They need to be peer reviewed. They can't have any bias. So if it's a company that is doing studies on its own thing, that's questionable as well. You need to make sure that you just do your fucking research.
Fourth-year PhD candidate in developmental biology. PA90, thanks for following.
in some adults,
technically
then why are they more
Sorry.
It's genetic.
Genetics. My bad.
than likely the first option? Because money. As far as money making goes, the medical industry, particularly in America,
Love you too. Antipodian Squid. Baja's love. Baja's life. Baja gets bits.
Aw, thank you.
is enormous.
I
And
just
when it
want
comes
cuddles from my Hannah. That's all I want.
being transgender, a lifetime of hormone treatment, surgeries, therapy, and other treatments can add up real fast.
Yeah, it's almost like that contributes to the trans suicide rate even after transition. Sucks being trans, but it is what it is, and you still have better outcomes when you transition than when you don't. So, the fact that there are negatives on top of the positives doesn't mean that the positives don't outweigh the negatives, right? Again, it's that risk-reward analysis that you make when going on any medication or making any choice in your life, for that matter.
Now, remember how I mentioned Planned Parenthood? Yeah, well, when the company's revenue took a dive with fewer women accessing abortion services by 2016, they expanded into the transgender market. In documents, they said that their goal
I'm cute too.
is to diversify their revenue base. And diversify they did. Based on how many donors and sponsors they have too, I'd also guess that they're getting kickbacks from referring patients to doctors and so on. I'm speculating, of course.
Hey, Sydney, if you want to advocate for the ending of for-profit healthcare in this country, I'm right there with you, comrade. Let's tear down the establishment and ensure that no one can try and make a buck off people suffering ever again. But if you're not, then you're just using it again in bad faith, right? If you're not in favor of universal healthcare, this entire argument is you just trying to be like, how can I demonize trans people? Well, I'll tell them they're being taken advantage of by the medical community. I have bad news for you, Sydney. If you're in America, we're all being taken advantage of by the medical industry. It is how it is. That's why you should advocate for things like universal health care.
But it wouldn't shock me. To be quite honest, nothing shocks me anymore. What can I say? I'm all out of shocks. No shocks given. Okay, thank you. We get it. Now remember...
Oh god, her little comedy asides are so awful. And again, not an ad hom, has nothing to do with how shitty she's being and like how wrong she is for citing these non-peer-reviewed studies, but like... Jesus.
Remember how I also mentioned the puberty blocker Lupron? Well, the companies who manufacture it, Abbott Laboratories and Takeda Chemicals, paid almost $200 million to the Department of Justice for giving doctors illegal kickbacks in exchange for prescribing Lupron to patients.
Yeah, the for-profit medical industry is super fucked up. This happens with tons of different medications. Have you been to your doctor's offices and they have like little mugs that have certain medication names on them, or they have, you know, they'll have a variety of things in their office that might, like pens sometimes will have medication names on them, because those are ads. Basically, pharmaceutical reps will go to doctors and they'll be like, hey, let me tell you about this medication. You should prescribe it to your customers who have this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. Here's a bunch of pens. You have to buy office supplies, so why don't we give you a bunch of pens, and here's a mug, and here's a da-da-da-da-da-da. It's all advertising for the prescription drug company, because again, in the United States, we have a really fucked up for-profit healthcare system. Did you know the United States is one of the only countries in which you can have commercials for medication? That's not a thing in other countries. You know, you see the commercials where it's like, hey, do you have this symptom, and this symptom? And it's a bunch of generic B-roll of, like, people going on a jog or people, you know, mowing their lawn or whatever. Buy, you know, Remeron, you know? Ask your doctor about Remeron today. And then there's, like, a scroll of... Most countries don't have that. This country is fucked.
Good stuff. Now, although this happened in 2001 and Lupron does have several other uses, it's not to say that Big Pharma isn't currently operating like this. After all, there is a history of big pharmaceutical companies giving doctors kickbacks for pushing particular drugs.
Yes, this has nothing specifically to do with trans healthcare. It's a problem across the board. We need to undo the for-profit healthcare system in the United States.
In addition, the cost of Lupron is anywhere from $775 a month, and that over the course of a few years can add up real quick.
I imagine that's the without health insurance price.
In fact, in 2017, the drug sales equaled $669 million in the United States alone.
Yeah, for-profit healthcare is fucked.
A $16 million increase from 2 years earlier. And with rates of children identifying as transgender currently skyrocketing across the world.
Skyrocketing! That's because in the past, it was not considered okay to be trans. It still isn't, especially from people like you. So, more people stayed in the closet. I'm sure there's countless numbers of trans individuals who would have been much happier had they been allowed to transition, but they were raised in a society that found that to be disgusting, so they weren't allowed to do so. So it's going to appear that the rates are going up, similar to, for instance, if you looked at a study citing, like, let's say in the 1950s, and you did a study that's like, how many homosexuals are there in the population? I'd imagine the number would be much lower than it is today. But that's not because there were fewer gay people. It's because the people who were gay had to be in the closet and not admit to that, right? So, as society gets more progressive and allows people to be out about who they are, it appears that the numbers go up, but it's not really what's happening. It's just that more people are comfortable self-reporting that, yes, I am indeed trans or gay or lesbian or whatever the study happens to be about.
There's a bit of money to be made here. So in conclusion, put a fork in me. I'm done. Now,
is that it? You done? There's 5 minutes left in this.
Unsurprisingly, this demand has been met with more and more gender youth clinics. In fact, the first opened up in 2007 by Boston's Children's Hospital, and
I have to drive 2.5 hours one way and then 2.5 hours back to get to the hospital I get my trans health care at. The reason that so many more centers are opening up around the country is because there are so few providers of trans health care. It's a good thing that it's available for people. Because if I didn't make decent enough money, I wouldn't be able to go and do that, to travel 5 hours in order to just get medication every 3 or 4 months. It's fucked up. It's really fucked up. And even right now, my car's broken. I gotta get my car fixed before I can go back to the doctor. So, like, the reason we're seeing an increase in the amount of healthcare centers that deal with trans people is because they're currently underrepresented. They're understaffed. There's fewer of them than there needs to be to fill the needs of the population. And now it's coming up to parity with the reality of the situation.
It has since been joined by over 40 others nationwide. But this explosion is also happening for adults as well. In a 14-year span, one study found that gender-affirming surgeries increased by 4-fold. By 2016, this allegedly increased again by 19%.
Yes, because people are more comfortable being out about who they are, and they understand, especially seeing people in the public eye, get transition and be happier with who they are, and they say, yeah, I can do this. I can tell you right now, if we weren't as open as we are right now in society, which isn't all that open, if we didn't have people in the public eye being open about being transgender and transitioning openly, I probably wouldn't have come out and gotten on hormones and eventually down the line getting the surgeries that I'm planning to get, right? This is how society works. As more people come out about something, the more people collectively realize, oh, I'm not alone. I can do this. And they decide to do it. At some point, it'll plateau out as we reach, like, the entire population of trans individuals understanding that this is something they can do, and if they'd like to transition, they can, and not worry about it as much. At some point, that'll plateau. But right now, we're still in the position where people are just coming out about this stuff, So, thank you to, oh boy, let's see, Luna Greenwich for following, and Antipodian Squid with 100 bits. I only just came out at 33. 33 because I didn't know what I was. Non-binary wasn't in the lexicon when I needed it. Otherwise, I would have been out as a kid. People before me just didn't come out. It's why you also get 50-year-olds coming out. They just weren't able to. Also, just call me Squid or go back to calling me Anita. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Basically that. People are more comfortable being out now, so the rates seem to climb, but that's because the number of people who are comfortable being out has climbed.
And seeking this sort of surgery isn't cheap, with a huge portion of people paying out of pocket.
Yeah, again, for-profit healthcare is disgusting. Let's fucking tear it down, Sydney, since you're so against it. I agree. Let's tear this fucker down!
The past decade, medical infrastructure to support and treat transgender people has proliferated.
Proliferated is not the right word. There are still very few places in the United States you can go to get bottom surgery, at least male to female, in my experience, right? So, no. Again, it's trying to rise to meet demand, but so far, still not there.
And a lot of hospitals and doctors have seized the opportunity to be the frontrunners in the industry, opening
Welcome to for-profit healthcare. It's fucked up. Can we take your order?
Specialized wings, clinics, and training doctors to do specific surgeries. And here, I want to remind you, this is to accommodate 0.6% of the population. Yes.
0.6% of the population? Let's see. How many people are in America? American population. 328.2, 328.2, 0.5%. Oh no! 16.41 million people? That's almost none! We have a large population, so that means even if it's a small percentage, that's a lot of people. That's 16.5 million trans people who need healthcare, Sydney. It's almost like you use the I even said 0.5, it's 0.6. So it's a little bit higher than the number I quoted. You're like, it's only 16 million people. 16 million people don't deserve healthcare. Let me see. Hold on. Let me do the math by hand, because that might not be right. Hold on. What was the population? Was it 360? Population of USA. 328. 328. Why can I not find it? Let's see. Boop. Boop. So almost 2 million. There we go. 2 million people, Sydney. That's a lot of people. 2 million people is a fuckload of people, Sydney. Do you want, like, one doctor to be dealing with this shit? Devious Chillster. Words cannot describe how much these fucker nerd burglars annoy me with the "it's only this % of the population" argument. Like, just because it's a small amount, what? Fuck them? They don't deserve good things? What if we took everyone with your exact same name and just set them on a desert island? I'm pretty sure you'd have a problem with that, even if that's just a small fucking percentage. Eat a literal dick made of cacti, you obtuse worm-brained simpleton. That's almost 2 million people. That's 2 million people you're saying don't deserve health care. Like, go fuck yourself. What else do you want me to say to that? Like, fuck you?
Yes. Just over 0.5%. Can't quite work out how to cure cancer or anything like that.
What a false fucking equivalence. Oh boy, well, you're doing trans medical stuff. You could be curing cancer. Well, are they an oncologist? Then no. It's not a zero-sum game, you idiot. I work in plastic surgery doing gender affirmation surgery, but I guess I need to go work on oncology even though I don't know anything about it. I'm not an oncologist, but hey, this idiot on the internet who uses jump cuts like they're going out of fucking style said that I should go cure cancer, so...
But, kid, we gotcha. We can stop your puberty. Honestly, I think the reason why this is happening is also reasonably simple too. People like Jazz Jennings, Caitlyn Jenner, and other celebrities have made it look fun and easy when the truth is, transitioning is an incredibly hard road.
It is. Trans people know this. Trans people know it's difficult. It's why our suicide rates are so high.
And most people who decide to traverse it don't have the enormous bank account of someone like Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes, down with for-profit healthcare. I agree.
If you go on crowdfunding websites, you quickly learn how many people are scraping together their pennies just to fund their transition.
True. Check out mine. Hold on. Let me... Twitch.tv/AnnaReloaded. I think I still have the link on here somewhere. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Thank you, everyone, by the way, who helped with this transition fund. I got $10,330, which is going to go towards my bottom surgery. So thanks, everyone. Welcome to the nightmare that is the American healthcare system, where GoFundMe is effectively insurance.
It's not nice. To compound this, education bodies...
I also have a thing, you can go on GoFundMe and find funds for people's cancer treatment. Does that mean that we should stop providing healthcare to people with cancer because they're being forced to beg for money on the internet because our healthcare system has failed? Like, what's your argument here? We know healthcare's expensive. It's why we fight for things like universal healthcare, because this shit is ridiculous and it's broken.
Have started integrating transgender theory into classrooms, telling kids that their sex is malleable.
How much is bottom surgery? Like, from what I saw, like $20,000.
Fluid. Personally, I think this is a little weird to do for 0.5% of the population. But I guess weirder things have happened. Further than that, we now have a third option on birth certificates and driver's licenses. Most websites list a third option when you're identifying your sex.
Okay. How does this hurt you in any way? Why do you care? Like, how is it harming you? Just genuine question.
We are given instruction on how to use gender-neutral language or inclusive language. So if you've now taught an entire generation of young people and children that sex can be changed,
Yes.
glamorized,
Your gender can be different from your sex is more what you're trying to say. XY Lily, thanks for following. Oh no, inclusivity, how bad. This is like when conservatives in the 80s and 90s would be like, oh no, all our kids are gonna wanna act all black now because rap is popular. Like, this is the same argument. Like, oh no, different people who are different than me are being seen in society in a positive light. Everyone's gonna wanna be that now. Or, how about this? We live in a diverse society with all kinds of different people of different genders, races, all this kind of stuff. And it's fine. And we can celebrate everyone without demonizing anyone for their identity.
it in the media and in pop culture, and taught people that there are more than two sexes,
Genders.
it's very unsurprising
And also, sex is bimodal. Intersex people exist. Gender is a social construct.
to me that there would in fact be an explosion in people seeking out transgender medical therapies and treatment.
Or, in society, we're just now starting to allow these things, and I'm talking allow in the sense that people understand that this is a good thing, people understand that trans rights are worthy of protecting. If people are trans, they should be allowed to do that thing. And so, in kind, people who are trans, who normally would have stayed in the closet their entire lives and been miserable, now feel confident enough to come out and be who they want to be and take steps to improve their lives.
Then you factor in the cost of surgeries and other things like laser hair removal, voice therapy, and so on.
Cancer treatment's expensive. We should let the tumors win. This is your argument. You're literally arguing, this is expensive, so you should just not do it. Like, no. I agree. The healthcare system in America is completely fucked, and it's fucked up that trans people have to shell out tens and tens of thousands of dollars to get where they want to be as a human being, but it doesn't mean you don't do it, right?
And you're looking at an exorbitant amount of money. No matter which way you want to slice it and dice it, being transgender is a lifelong cost.
Yeah. I guess you should treat trans people with more respect because of how tough it is.
And you can bet
And then you ask why trans people have such high suicide rates compared to the general population. 'Cause it sucks! But it doesn't change the fact that it's who we are, right? Like, I can admit to you, yeah, there's a lot of shit that sucks about being trans, but me understanding that there's a lot of shit that sucks about it doesn't make me not that. It would be like, again, in like the 70s, saying to like a gay person, well, don't you know that like suicide rates for gay people are really high and people treat you like shit? Like, yeah, it sucks, but it doesn't make them any less gay, right? Or imagine going up like to like a black person and being like, oh no, don't you know that there are a lot of negative outcomes associated with being black in America because of systematic racism and the fact that like, I don't know, the police will murder you at a higher rate, institutional racism affects basically everything in the country, your income on average is going to be lower, why don't you just not be black? Like, what? Like, that's not how you solve problems, you idiot.
Bet your bottom dollar that Big Pharma and the
Dude Spanking Dude says, as sick as this is my own take on cancer, if I got cancer, it's just to spend the money on a trip to Japan and travel around the world and stuff. If I want to get cancer treatment, it's expensive. You're not guaranteed to live. It hurts and you can't... Hey, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But, like, it's not an argument why not to do it, right? That's an argument why the American healthcare system is busted as fuck.
medical industry are making bank as a result.
Again, yes, welcome to America. We need to fix a lot of things, including our healthcare system.
I know this, of course, because I am a wizard. Now, obviously,
I'm so quirky. Ha 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 ha. Ha. I'm a wizard. Ha 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 ha. Trans people die. Like, this isn't funny. You're not being funny. Fuck off with this shit.
Honestly, I've only touched on a fraction of this topic, and there are so many other factors. But we've seen a huge medical expansion for a tiny, but growing, portion of the population.
Yes, because we're being underserved currently. Remember earlier when I said I have to make a 5-hour round trip just to get the healthcare that I need? Right? And I know you're gonna say, well, you don't need it. Yeah, I do actually. Because if I didn't, I'd probably fucking kill myself, right? In Minecraft. Like, gender dysphoria is a fucking bitch. And I hid this shit for a long, long time. And in high school, I did try and kill myself multiple times. This shit isn't a fucking game. It's not something we're doing for fun. Although there can be fun aspects to it. Finding your identity and finding your own style and getting to, like, be the person you are. But, like, it's not because I just want to do it for funsies, right? It's because if I don't, my life is a fucking nightmare.
And at this point, at least to me, it seems pretty clear that the medical industry is basically taking people's suffering and turning it into a money-making venture.
Welcome to American healthcare, you fucking idiot! Where have you been the last 100 years? What do you think is going on? This is literally the entirety of for-profit healthcare! What does this have to do with trans people specifically? I don't know, guys. I have a feeling that the medical industry might be trying to make money off of sick people. Yeah, that's what we've been yelling about. We need healthcare as a right for everyone. God, these people are so stupid.
We're currently manufacturing a gender crisis that will have irreversible and horrible damaging effects for individuals further down the line. And rather than stopping the indoctrination in schools and also addressing the mental health aspect of all of this, instead we're...
This is like saying, basically, a small percentage of people who get nose jobs regret getting a nose job, so we should ban people from getting nose jobs. No. No.
There's nothing
just
funny
pumping-
about the tools
And by
of
the way,
capitalism.
people who regret getting gender confirmation surgery are at a lower percentile than regret for any general plastic surgery, just for your information. They only like capitalism when it doesn't help those that they hate. Yeah.
Also, in a study that I read about, like, regret of gender confirmation surgery, it's not
nothing
that
funny
they
about the tools
wish
of
they didn't get the
capitalism.
surgery, they wish that the outcome would have been better. Like, they don't have the functionality that they were hoping for, or, you know, there's, especially for male to female, you can have, like, bladder problems, and it's more that than, like, you know, oh, I realized I'm not actually trans.
Yeah, it's
or
about
whatever.
complications from the surgery. Squid says, see, Baja's love, Baja's life. More bits for Baja. Indeed, she is.
I just love Hannah so much, and I don't like her talking about sad things that happened in her past.
People full of expensive and sometimes untested drugs and calling it a day. Now, obviously, there
Untested drugs. Puberty blockers have been a thing for a really long time. This is not a new development.
are medical professionals out there who do the right things by their patients, who treat them with respect and treat this overall issue with respect, and I think that's really great, and they should be recognized and acknowledged for doing that. But for the ones who don't, including big pharma companies, Planned Parenthood, and so on,
Oh no, Planned Parenthood. You said the scary company. Oh no!
these are the people that need to be held accountable for exploiting people. At the end of the day, I am of the opinion that we should be questioning much more why this issue is being popularized and glamorized the way
Being trans is not glamorized, trust me.
that it is. Because I can bet you almost anything it has very little to do with human rights and has everything to do with money.
Fuck you! As a trans person, Fuck you. This lady's awful.
Now, before I open the floor to you, this is just a reminder that you can download Surfshark VPN.
Jesus Christ. I'm not gonna say I've said, like, you're stupid and you're an idiot this whole time because I'm mad at this person. I don't think she's an idiot. I think she knows exactly what she's doing, and she's arguing in complete bad faith to try and push for positions that she believes in, like that trans people are not okay. I'd imagine if the world existed exactly how she wanted it to exist, trans people just wouldn't be a part of it. And so, she makes dishonest videos about how she thinks that trans people are somehow selectively in the American healthcare system being taken advantage of by money men, when in reality, all of us are. So, Sydney, shut the fuck up. Just knock it off. You're awful.